We want to welcome everybody to the Tune webinar with Alan Lovelace of RPM Pizza.
Thank you, Sarah and Jim. It's an honor to be with you today to share, the success we've had with Tune over the last 4 years. It's been a great journey. Dominos has grown to be the #1 brand, and with your help, we're working to also lead the charge in a healthy environmental footprint. And so we appreciate what you've done to support that. I know you wanted to talk about the in-depth study that we did at store 5209, right?
Yes, that's right. And in Acto. So what are peak demand hours? We may have some people on here who do and don't understand some of those different nuances of stuff. And so can you unpack that from your multi-site QSR space?
Peak is a factor that helps determine what they're going to, what rate they're going to charge us at. If you can reduce the peak spikes, they look at you more favorably on the charges. Some companies, like a co-op here, if you can reduce peak during certain hours, especially, it really helps make a dramatic impact on your rate. And so that's an important piece to look at because it affects your billing.
What Alan had approved before the rollout occurred was that he wanted to collect some data in this particular store, and he wanted a third-party, well-recognized, a trusted partner in that process. So they contracted with Honeywell and used their Enacto cloud-based system to collect daily data, not just on KWH, but on the consumption of different components that made up that consumption model. And so to the left of the graph, you see the kilowatt hour consumption and the charges associated with those peak demands. And what occurred in October after the installation was we were able to smooth that consumption curve so that they didn't have those wild spikes. And when in some areas, those wild spikes can cost a consumer 4 to 5 times their base kilowatt rate. And in that case, they're reflected on that bill for for not that day, but for the month, and it gets very expensive. Different regions charge different. When we were reviewing Alan's bills, there was Mississippi Power was there, Gulf States Power was there, and there were, I think, 3 or 4 other local, what do they call them, EMCs, or municipal governments that were doing the municipal power billing. So he was dealing with a wide variety of power bills and agreements with the different municipals, and this is what the outcome was. It's a great illustration of what can occur over time, and an 18-month picture validated his payback period.
So I think for people, it's important to dive into the variables that were isolated here and why we chose this store. So this store was chosen because they had a history of excelling and wasting energy. That was their strength.
Nice.
My technician would come in and would say, they left all of the warmers on overnight. Great, So we wanted to monitor different pieces of equipment. And so this store was chosen specifically because it was a very costly store. Also, the timing of the installation of Tune is important. If you look at this chart and you can see the bars, the blue bars starting in July, that's the overall trend. You will notice before July, which was 4 months before Tune was installed, the spikes were larger. So to be 100% clear, the spikes were larger, and during that time, we were replacing some larger equipment. But when July happened, in fact, about June, we didn't replace any additional equipment during this whole time that's on this chart. So you can see that we still, even after we had replaced equipment, which reduced our spikes a little, we still had those major spikes in August, September, et cetera. And then when Tune came, it was gone. And so if I were you and I was looking at it, well, was it really Tune? No, it was isolated. We didn't replace any equipment after June. So it helps to prove that. And so that was exciting to see the impact on the peak demand.
Please explain the Enacto system. What actually is that? Which is a great question.
It is.
What exactly is that, Alan?
So Enacto is a piece of equipment that you put onto your electric panel, and you choose certain breakers where you want to monitor different pieces of equipment to understand the impact that they're going to have on your overall kilowatt consumption. And then there is a meter also that determines what's being sent back to the power company, which is really where you see the peak. We had, I think, 9 pieces of equipment that were hooked up to it. And so, yeah, so that's why we chose it, and that's what it does. There are other companies that do the same thing, but Honeywell was a trusted but more cost-effective brand.